Hi, Aaron. Jeff Allen. Just saw your post on LinkedIn about the empathy with what's happening in Ukraine right now and Russia, and your statement in the middle about it that having you haven't been born and raised in the United States, you've never understood what it means to have an invasion on domestic soil, and it's hard to understand that. And I've lived in France for since 1989, since the year that the Berlin Wall fell, and I've lived here for 30 years. And I integrated fully in the culture, married into it, and have had children here, and I've worked here, and I know the devastation that has caused to people in France and Europe. You know what happened back in the World War II, and I've seen people that have been devastated by invasion and have seen how that's happened even in and all that people that live in the eastern France and in Strasbourg and those areas and in Alsace and Lorraine and that I followed that history very closely, even though it's not something I studied, but I did other things in languages and linguistics and other topics in history and done my own my master's doctorate in those, but I want to bring that up because the military thing, because I have worked on bilingual translation systems for the U.S. military. It was for humanitarian aid purposes, but it was funded by the Army Research Labs, the Department of Defense, and the Defense Army Research, projects agency. And I did it because I was asked to do it for a specific language. Would I do that today? I'm not sure. Um, but the topic of no thing war on military on no invasion on domestic soil. In 2013, I was visiting my father in a retirement home because I was asked to come and be there during, we didn't know if it would be his last days. So I had to fly from France to the place in the States and stay with people to be with my dad for a week. And during that week, staying with some people, I'm not going to mention any names here because I don't want to shame them. I could shame them, but I'm not going to do it. Um, there were some discussions about politics and in the kitchen, politics and voting and that kind of stuff. The stuff you don't usually talk about, but it got talked about, brought up, and people saying, "Why'd you live in? What you left in France and stuff?" And you 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 fled like the Americans to Canada. Okay. Except in France, we have three different flavors of that. We have called conscious objectors too. So I dared to say to this person who was in the military, okay, I dared to say this. I said, when was the last? Let's come to your question. When was the last domestic invasion on U.S. territory? Domestic. And I said, can't count. You can't count the Hawaiian Islands in December 1942 because that's off on the islands are like 5 hour plane trip. And that person, I said, and you've been stationed there twice, okay, twice in your family. Maybe once at that point. That would have been once at that point. Maybe the second time, then another round. And then I said, you can't count the Aleutian Islands either, because those are off on the off in June 1942, um, off of the coast of Alaska, which is again, it's not quite the continent, right? Okay, not quite. And on top of it's not the continental, considered with the 48 lower continental states, right? That's the two Hawaii. So there's Hawaii and Alaska. I said, you can't count those. When was the last military invasion? And this is a military person on U.S. domestic soil. And you know what the person answered with? Guess what they answered with? 9/11. And I laughed. I said, that is not a military invasion. And you need to do your history again. You need to go back and you need to, I told this person, you need to go back to junior high school and high school, understand what domestic is and what a military invasion is. And maybe you need to go back to your basic training and understand, what an invasion is. Okay. Um, And I said, if you're that stupid to think that 9/11 was a military invasion rather than just an individual terroristic, kind of activity, which Tony Stark, in Iron Man 1 fought against, and he woke up to the whole thing. I said this stuff. I had no problem saying it. That person got all freaked out, and I'm not going to say who it is, and it was a really close person, okay? Kicked me out of the house, okay? Well, I'm 2 days from finishing with my dad. And I found another place to stay. And I pretty much did not talk with that person for another decade, okay? Because kicking me out of their house and I said, your problem is that you're sitting there making a big deal about politics. And you need to get the big picture here, folks. Big picture. And I said, all this military enterprise. And I was saying to a military person. And I said, hey, yeah, and I've worked for the military too. I kind of worked on developing these translation systems you guys know about, okay? You talk about it. And I was kind of next to a military base where I could talk to them about stuff. And I would have gotten invited if I'd asked to actually come and talk about it. Because it was like in Monterey, okay? Yeah, the Defense Language Institute. I could have given them a talk on language translation systems. I could have given a talk there, okay? But I didn't because I was there to see my dad, not to come give a talk about translation systems for the Defense Language Institute, okay? But I dared to bring that up to someone in the military that had been in the military for 10 years and was halfway through thinking about whether they want to stay in it or not. And I brought up, and they couldn't even answer a question when the last domestic invasion was. That was not on the islands. And I said, that's shameful. You're in the military, I'm not. And I know the history of it, and you don't. And that unfortunately is the mindset of a lot of Americans. That it was a military thing. No, it was a terrorist attack, an individual terrorist attack that was funded. And a lot of Americans need to wake up, like you're saying. They need to wake up to it. That was not military. And that, what? But the problem is that event is what funds. That's what funds the military enterprise in the States. Okay? And that's where we're the international police. And that's how I'd say it. We're the international police. It's another act of imperialism. Another example of imperialism. It's just not, and it's to go, defend all the oil stuff, right? Okay? Where there's money, there's natural resources that are worth defending, right? Because there's a lot of volume of usage of it. But it's not, we don't care about the people in Rwanda. We don't care about the people in Nigeria. We don't care about the people, in various countries. I could cite them across the whole thing, we don't care when there's tons of, women being, come on. So I totally agree with you that lots of Americans have no idea what it means to have been impacted by a military invasion that comes in and just destroys everything. Okay, but that's why I like to watch a lot of the historical films. And I think that Saving Private Ryan is a very moving story because it shows you the truth. And a lot of documentaries, and there are a lot of museums here in France. I'll tell you, there are a lot of museums, and there's also the U.S. cemetery here with all the guys that. I'm going to say guys because the majority were men at the time. There are more women in the military now, but yeah, I've been there, and have been there several times. And I'm not pro-military. Okay? I'm not a pro-military person. People do their job. They've chosen to do that. I've chosen not to do that. And I respect their decision. They want to do it. But the fact that we're just playing international police in the U.S., the U.S. is playing international police is not always a good thing. This is not always a good thing. and we shouldn't always be involved in stuff. We should sometimes get out of it. Um, but that mindset of what is domestic invasion. Most people in the United States have no idea, and most of the military folks have no idea, and they think that they're defend. The problem is that they say that we're defending our territory. Not defending the territory. The thing hasn't been attacked. It's never been attacked. How far back? How far back? That's a challenge I ask people. How far back was the last domestic invasion of some kind of military or a military thing? Challenge some folks to think about that date. Do some historical archaeology here, because it's a different world when you actually live it. You see it. You see the results of it. I can drive around. I can drive just a couple, 1 or 2 hours away, and I can see the results of it here. Okay, actually, not even that far down the road. Actually, in my hometown, not the hometown, but the town here that I've lived in for 20 years. Bam! Bridges are destroyed by the war. Okay, bridges destroyed by the war and rebuilt. Yeah. So that's Americans have no idea. They have no idea, and the military have no idea, and they're fighting a war. Tony Stark. I really do appreciate Iron Man 1 and his whole movies, because it tells you another story. It tells you a different story of why we shouldn't be doing this stuff and should not be involved in that. Trying to play the international military police and things for certain purposes and for certain reasons and not others. So those are my thoughts on it. Yeah, I'll get blasted for that one. It's okay. I'm a big guy. I can handle it. So, but yeah. And I've given conference talks 2015 in Lyon, France, where I brought up my background. I brought up that I had built this translation system. I brought about the taboos of that. And I've actually talked about whether or not I would do that again if I knew what I was doing, even if I was the person that had the background to be able to build that system. And yeah, in 2010, I had another opportunity, and I didn't take it up. Okay, let's say it that way. I avoided it, even if I was threatened that I had to take it. No, I didn't have to take it, and I didn't take it, and it didn't do anything. Okay, and yeah, there was still the need, but I decided not to do it. Well, I got around to not having to do it. Okay, so yeah, I fully agree with you, fully do, and it's really unfortunate that all the rest of things are happening today as they are, because it's been happening for millennia in many different countries. Unfortunately, this is the history of mankind: is power and greed, and playing who's bigger, who's got the bigger daddy, right? Unfortunately, that's really sad. And I've done 3 decades of work to try to support those that are underprivileged, that don't have this kind of help, and trying to use my influence, whatever I can, to help them. So thanks for your post. Thanks for that statement. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to confirm and to affirm that, with some pretty solid experience and having dealt with it, and having to challenge people who thought that they knew what they're talking about because they were in the military. I had to kind of just say, you don't know what you're talking about. So, unfortunately. So, Jeff Allen signing off.